Jack Miller woke up to loud banging on his door. He sat up in bed and blinked at the clock. It was 4:30 in the morning. The banging continued, harder this time. Lieutenant Commander Miller. "Open this door now." The voice was deep and angry. Jack got out of bed and pulled on his uniform pants. He had been on the USS Defender for 6 months now as the lead communications officer for the human team in the Galactic Coalition. Things had been tense with the Zornaxian Empire lately, but this was new. He opened the door to find 4 tall, blue-skinned Draconid security officers. Their scales shimmered under the hallway lights. The lead officer towered over Jack by at least 2 feet. "Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller, you are under arrest by order of the Coalition Security Council," the lead officer said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You will come with us now." Jack looked at their weapons, all pointed at him. "Can I at least put on my shoes?" The lead officer nodded once. Jack slipped on his boots, his mind racing. Arrest? For what? He had been careful to follow all Coalition rules. As a communications specialist, his job was to help humans talk to aliens, not to get in trouble with them. That the Draconids put restraints on his wrists and marched him through the ship. Other crew members peeked out of their rooms, whispering as he passed. Jack kept his head high. Whatever this was, it had to be a mistake. They took him to a shuttle and flew to Nexus Station, a massive space station that served as headquarters for the Galactic Coalition. The station was a marvel of alien and human engineering, a giant wheel spinning in space with 12 spokes representing the 12-member species DOT as they walked through the wide, clean hallways of the station. Aliens of all kinds stopped to stare at Jack. Some looked curious, others looked angry. A small green Arthosian spat on the floor as Jack passed. They brought him to a large round room with high ceilings. In the center was a circular table with 12 seats. The Coalition Security Council. Jack had seen pictures, but had never been inside. Susan Wright, the head of the human delegation, stood as Jack entered. Her face was pale and worried. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that usually sparked with intelligence. Today, they were clouded with concern. "What's going on?" Jack asked her. Before she could answer, the doors on the far side opened. In walked High Commander Krell of the Zornaxian Empire. He was 7 feet tall with green and brown scales and yellow eyes with slits for pupils. His uniform was covered in medals and badges of rank. "The prisoner will be silent," Krell said, his forked tongue flicking between sharp teeth. The council members took their seats. The Draconid guards pushed Jack into a small area in the center of the room, a circle of light shining down on him. Council leader, a wise old Tellurian with purple skin and 4 arms, spoke first. "Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller, you have been brought before this council on serious charges." "High Commander Krell, please present your case." Krell stepped forward. His clawed hands worked the control panel, and a large screen appeared in the air above the table. 3 days ago, a Zornaxian civilian outpost on the moon of Kelthos was destroyed by a drone strike. 423 civilians died. Krell's voice was cold. Our investigation found that the strike was authorized by Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller of the human delegation. The screen filled with images. First, a peaceful-looking base on a gray moon. Then, the same base in ruins, smoke rising from broken buildings. Then, communication logs with Jack's name and ID number. Authorization codes. Satellite images. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. "That's not possible. I didn't do this." Susan Wright stood up. Commander Miller was in diplomatic meetings at the time of this alleged authorization. He could not have. "We have the evidence," Krell interrupted. "Your humans' codes were used. His authorization is on the record. The blood of Zornaxian civilians is on his hands." The council members looked at each other. The Tellurian leader spoke again. This is a serious matter. If proven true, it would be considered a war crime under coalition law. A low murmur filled the room. The word war echoed off the walls. The peace between humans and Zarnaxians was new and fragile. Something like this could break it. I called for an immediate vote, Krell said. The human should be held for trial. The evidence is clear. I object, Susan said, standing again. We need time to investigate these claims. Commander Miller has an excellent record. He has worked for peace between our peoples. The Tellurian nodded. We will vote on whether to hold the accused for trial. As is our custom, the accused's delegation will have time to prepare a defense. The council members talked quietly among themselves. Then, one by one, they voted. 10 votes for holding Jack for trial. Only the human and Arthosian representatives voted against. It is decided, the Tellurian said. Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller will be held on Nexus Station pending trial for war crimes against the Zarnaxian people. The formal proceedings will begin in 72 hours. The Draconid guards moved to take Jack away. Susan quickly stepped over to him. Jack, listen to me, she whispered. This is a setup. Someone wants to destroy the peace talks. We'll figure this out. How? Jack asked. You saw the evidence. They have my codes, my authorization. I'll get our best people on it. What do you need? Jack thought for a moment. In his mind, he saw the evidence Krell had shown. The logs, the timestamps, the authorization codes. Something wasn't right. I need access to a computer, he said. With presentation software. Susan looked confused. Presentation software? Why? Because I'm going to need to make a PowerPoint, Jack said. If someone set me up, there will be holes in their story. I'm going to find them and show everyone the truth. As the guards pulled him away, Jack's mind was already working. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to frame him. They had used his codes, his name, but they had made mistakes. They had to have made mistakes, and Jack was going to find every single one of them. He would turn those mistakes into slides, into evidence, into his freedom. And maybe, just maybe, he would save the peace in the process. The cell they put him in was small but clean. There was a bed, a toilet, and a desk with a basic computer. No connection to the main systems, but enough to work with. Jack sat down and cracked his knuckles. All right, he said to the empty room. Let's make the best damn PowerPoint the galaxy has ever seen. Jack stared at the computer screen, his eyes burning from lack of sleep. He had been working for nearly 20 hours straight, stopping only to eat the bland food the guards brought him. The computer Susan had gotten him wasn't connected to the main coalition network, but it had the basic software he needed to start building his case. A soft knock on his cell door made him look up. The door slid open, and Olivia Garcia stepped in. Olivia was the digital forensics expert on the USS Defender, and one of Jack's closest friends. You look terrible, she said, putting down a bag on his bed. Jack rubbed his eyes. Thanks. You always know how to make a guy feel special. Olivia smiled and pulled out a small device from her bag. I can't stay long. Susan pulled a lot of strings. To get me 5 minutes with you. She held up the device. This is a secure data drive. It's not supposed to exist, so don't tell anyone I gave it to you. Jack took the drive. It was smaller than his thumb. What's on it? Software that will help you dig deeper, and a secure link to me. Whatever you find, I can help analyze it from the ship. She glanced at the door. Susan thinks someone high up is involved in framing you. We need to be careful. Jack nodded and plugged the drive into his computer. The screen flickered, and new programs appeared. Thank you, he said. Olivia squeezed his shoulder. Find the truth, Jack. We're all counting on you. After she left, Jack got to work. With the new software, he could now properly examine the evidence against him. He started with the communication logs that supposedly showed him authorizing the drone strike. The logs looked real at first glance. His name, his ID number, his access codes. But as he dug deeper, he noticed something strange. The TIMESTAMPS dot, according to the logs, he had authorized the strike at 14:30 station time on the day of the attack. Jack checked his own schedule for that day. At 14:30, he had been in a diplomatic meeting with representatives from the Arthosian Republic. A meeting that had been recorded. A meeting with dozens of witnesses. First mistake, Jack muttered, creating a new slide in his presentation. He documented the time conflict, adding images from the meeting recording that clearly showed him present. Next, he examined the authorization codes. They were valid, they were his codes, but they had been used in an unusual pattern. Jack always followed a specific sequence when entering his codes, a habit from his training days. The logs showed a different sequence. Second mistake, Jack said, making another slide. He worked through the night, finding more inconsistencies. The location data embedded in the logs showed the authorization coming from his quarters, but the security scans from that day showed he hadn't returned to his quarters until much later. Got by morning. Jack had a solid start on his presentation, but he knew it wasn't enough. He needed to prove who had really authorized the strike, not just that it wasn't him. Using Olivia's secure link, he sent her his findings. Her reply came quickly. Good work on the time conflicts. I'm looking into who had access to your codes. Also, I found something strange about that civilian outpost. Sending you some files. Jack opened the files Olivia sent. They were sensor readings from the USS Defender, taken during routine patrols near Zornaxian space. The readings showed unusual energy signatures from the moon base, consistent with weapons testing, not civilian activity. This doesn't make sense, Jack said to himself. Why would Krell lie about it being a civilian outpost? A new message from Olivia popped up on his screen. Found something big. Your access credentials were cloned 3 weeks ago during the system upgrade. Several technicians had the opportunity, including some Draconids, and at least one Zornaxian. Jack added this information to his presentation. He was building a timeline now, showing how someone had stolen his credentials, used them to authorize the strike, and then framed him for it. But the question remained, who and why? Jack thought about the peace negotiations between humans and Zornaxians. They had been making progress after years of tension. This incident threatened to destroy all that progress. Someone doesn't want peace, Jack realized. He made a new slide, listing possible suspects who might benefit from continued conflict between humans and Zornaxians. Another message from Olivia appeared. Check this out. That outpost was evacuated hours before the strike. I found transport. Logs. No one died, Jack. The whole thing was staged. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This was bigger than he had thought. Someone had gone to elaborate lengths to frame him, even faking civilian deaths to make the crime more serious. He was deep in his work when his cell door opened again. This time, it wasn't a friendly face. A tall Zornaxian in civilian clothes stepped in, looking nervously over his shoulder. Jack stood up quickly. Who are you? My name is K. Revik, the Zornaxian said quietly. I am a junior diplomat in our delegation. I have come to help you. Jack eyed him suspiciously. Why would you help me? Kayavik's scaled face was hard to read, but his voice sounded sincere. Not all of us believe you are guilty. There are factions within our government who profit from war with humans. They would not hesitate to sacrifice our own people to maintain power. You're taking a big risk coming here. Jack said. K. Revak nodded. Yes, but I believe in peace between our peoples. He handed Jack a small data crystal. These are classified Zornaxian military records. They show the outpost was a weapons research facility, not a civilian base, and they confirm it was evacuated before the attack. Jack took the crystal. Thank you. This could save my life. It could save the peace. There is more, Krevok said. The records show who ordered the evacuation. High General Vrask of the Draconid military. Jack's eyes widened. Vrask? He's on the Coalition Security Council. K. Revak nodded. He is also the largest supplier of weapons to both Zornaxian and human colonies in disputed territories. War is profitable for him. After Craig left, Jack worked with renewed energy. He added the new evidence to his presentation, carefully documenting the connections between Vrask and various military contractors. With just 24 hours left before his trial, Jack sent his updated findings to Olivia. Her response was quick and excited. You're on to something big. I've been tracking financial records. Vrask's companies have seen their stock value triple since tensions between humans and Zarnaxians increased last year. I'm sending you everything I found. Jack worked through the night, refining his presentation. What had started as a simple defense had become an expose of corruption at the highest levels of the Coalition. As dawn broke on the day of his hearing, Jack looked at his completed presentation. 64 slides of evidence, connections, and conclusions, all pointing to a conspiracy led by General Vrask to keep humans and Zornaxians at war for profit. Time to show them what a human with a PowerPoint can do, Jack said, saving his work one final time. The hearing room was packed with aliens and humans. Jack stood in the center, his hands no longer in restraints, but his uniform wrinkled from 3 days in detention. He held his data pad with his presentation ready to go. This was his one chance to prove his innocence and expose the real criminal. The 12 members of the Coalition Security Council sat in a half-circle in front of him. Jack spotted General Vrask among them, the large Draconid looking calm and confident. Too confident for someone who was about to be exposed as a war criminal. High Commander Krell entered the room with 4 Zornaxian guards, his yellow eyes fixed on Jack with pure hatred. Susan Wright came in next, along with 2 human legal advisors. She gave Jack a small nod of encouragement. The Tellurian Council leader raised all 4 of his purple arms for silence. The room grew quiet. We are here today for the formal hearing of Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller of Earth, the Tellurian said. He stands accused of authorizing an illegal strike on a Zarnaxian civilian outpost, resulting in many deaths. Commander Krell will present the case against the accused. Krell stepped forward, his scales gleaming under the bright lights. The evidence is clear, he said. 3 days ago, a peaceful Zornaxian outpost was destroyed by drones. The authorization came from Lieutenant Commander Miller's access codes. We have the logs, the visual confirmation, everything we need to prove his guilt. Krell worked the room's controls, and the same images Jack had seen before appeared in the air above them. The base before and after the attack. The communication. Logs with Jack's name. The authorization codes. The attack killed 423 Zornaxian civilians, Krell continued. Scientists, doctors, families. This was not a military target. This was a war crime, and the human must pay for it. Many in the room nodded. Jack could feel the anger directed at him. Humans were still new to the Coalition, and many aliens didn't trust them yet. This incident was making things worse. When Krell finished, the Tellurian turned to Jack. Lieutenant Commander Miller, you may now present your defense. Jack took a deep breath and stepped forward. He connected his datapad to the room's display system. His first slide appeared above. Them, the truth about Kelthos Moonbase. Council members, representatives, thank you for this chance to speak, Jack began. I did not authorize the attack on Kelthos Moonbase. I was framed, and today I will prove it. I will also show you who really ordered the attack, and why. Jack moved through his presentation with calm confidence. First, he showed his alibi, the recording of him in the diplomatic meeting at the exact time the attack was authorized. As you can see, I was in a meeting with Arthosian representatives when my access codes were used. I cannot be in two places at once. Next, he showed how his access credentials had been cloned during a system upgrade 3 weeks earlier. Someone stole my identity to commit this crime, but they made mistakes. Jack clicked to the next slide, showing the authorization pattern. This is how the codes were entered for the attack. And this, he clicked again, is how I always enter my codes. The patterns are different. Whoever used my codes didn't know my habits. Murmurs spread through the room. Jack was just getting started. He moved to his next slides, showing the sensor readings from the USS Defender. The Zornaxian base was not a civilian outpost. These energy readings show weapons testing consistent with a military research facility. Krell jumped to his feet. Lies! This is human propaganda. The Tellurian raised a hand for silence. Let him finish. Jack nodded thanks and continued. But the most important evidence is this. He clicked to the next slide, showing the transport logs Krovak had given him. The base was evacuated 6 hours before the attack. No one died. The entire incident was staged. The room erupted in shock. Voices. The Tellurian had to call for order several times. These are Zornaxian military records, Jack explained when the room quieted. They show who ordered the evacuation and why. The order came from General Vrask of the Draconid military. All eyes turned to Vrask. The large Draconid stood up, his blue scales darkening with anger. This is absurd. Vrask shouted. You cannot believe this human's desperate lies. Jack remained calm. I have more. He clicked to his next slide, showing financial records. These are records of weapons sales to both human and Zornaxian colonies in disputed territories, all from companies owned by General Vrask. The financial charts showed huge spikes in profits each time tensions increased between humans and Zornaxians. General Vrask makes money from conflict between our species, Jack said. Peace is bad for his business. He needed something to destroy the peace talks. So he staged an attack, blamed a human, and nearly started a war. Vrask looked around the room, seeing the suspicious faces of his fellow council members. This proves nothing, he said, but his voice was less certain now. Jack's next slide showed communications between Vrask and extremist groups in both human and Zornaxian space. The messages discussed ways to keep the conflict going, to prevent peace at all. Costs. I didn't find these messages, Jack admitted. Lieutenant Olivia Garcia of the USS Defender did. She tracked them through encrypted channels back to General Vrask's personal account. Olivia stood up from her seat near Susan. I can confirm this. The encryption was complex, but the source is clear. These messages came from General Vrask. Vrask looked trapped. His eyes darted around the room, perhaps looking for allies or an escape route. Then suddenly, he lunged toward the door. 2 Draconid security officers blocked his way. They had been quietly positioned there by the Tellurian. While Jack was speaking, detain General Vrask, the Tellurian ordered. We will investigate these claims immediately. As the security officers took Vrask away, the Tellurian turned back to Jack. Lieutenant Commander Miller, this evidence is ... disturbing. If what you say is true, you have uncovered a serious crime against both humans and Zornaxians. Krell had been silent, his yellow eyes moving from the presentation to Vrask and back again. Now he spoke. I was not aware of the evacuation order. If the base was empty, and if Vrask arranged this, he seemed to struggle with his words. Then I have been used as a tool against humanity. Jack nodded. We were all used, Commander Krell. Vrask wanted our peoples to fight. He didn't care. Who died in the process? The Tellurian raised all 4 hands again. This hearing is suspended while we investigate these new claims. Lieutenant Commander Miller will remain on Nexus Station, but is no longer under arrest. We will reconvene when our investigation is complete. As the council members filed out, Susan came to Jack's side. That was incredible, she said. You just saved the peace talks and probably a lot of lives. Jack smiled tiredly. All it took was a good PowerPoint. Kay Revac approached them cautiously. Your presentation was effective, the Zornaxian said. Our people have much to learn from humans. And we have much to learn from you, Jack replied. Thank you for your help. It took courage. Cav Revac's scaled face moved in what might have been a smile. Perhaps this is the true beginning of peace between our peoples. Not in grand treaties, but in simple acts of trust. Jack nodded. His presentation had done more than save him. It had shown that humans and aliens could work together, that truth could overcome prejudice and greed. It wasn't a bad day's work for a communications officer with a knack for PowerPoint. A week passed since the hearing. Jack sat in temporary quarters on Nexus Station, waiting. The Coalition Security Council was still investigating his claims against General Vrask. Jack wasn't under arrest anymore, but he couldn't leave the station yet. There was a knock on his door. Jack opened it to find Olivia standing there with a big smile. They found more evidence, she said, walking in. Vrask's personal files had everything. Plans for attacks, bribes to officials, even a list of people he wanted to frame if the first. Plan failed. You weren't the only target, just the first. Jack sat down on his bed. Has he confessed? Olivia nodded. Once they showed him the evidence, he talked. Tried to make a deal. He gave up names of his partners on both sides. Both sides? Yeah. He had people working for him in the human military, too. People who wanted the war to continue. Arms dealers, mostly. Jack shook his head. All those lives at risk, just for money. Not just money, Olivia said. Power, too. Some of them believed their side should rule the galaxy. They saw peace as weakness. There was another knock. This time it was Susan Wright, looking tired but happy. Good news, Jack, she said. The council has officially cleared you of all charges. And they want to see you. Now? Jack asked. Now, Susan confirmed. They're calling an emergency session. Something big is happening. Jack followed Susan through the station to the council chamber. The room was even more crowded than before. Representatives from all 12 coalition species filled the seats. Jack saw many familiar faces, including Kravak, who gave him a small nod. The Tellurian council leader called the room to order. We have completed our investigation into the claims made by Lieutenant Commander Miller, he announced. The evidence confirms his innocence and reveals a conspiracy that threatened the peace of the coalition. The Tellurian gestured to a screen, showing Vrask and several others, both human and alien. These individuals have been arrested and will face trial for their crimes. But today, we are here for a different purpose. High Commander Krell stepped forward. The Zornaxian looked different somehow. Less rigid, less angry. The Zornaxian Empire wishes to formally apologize to Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller and to the human delegation, Krell said. His voice was still deep and powerful, but there was a new note in it. Respect, perhaps. We were deceived, but that is no excuse. We accused an innocent being and nearly destroyed the peace between our peoples. For this, we are deeply sorry." Jack was surprised. Zornaxians rarely apologized for anything. "It was not in their culture." Krell continued. "As a gesture of our sincerity, the Zornaxian High Command proposes a new joint security force, led by humans and Zornaxians together, to prevent such deceptions in the future." Murmurs of surprise filled the room. This was unexpected. The Zornaxians were a proud people who usually worked alone. The Tellurian looked pleased. "The Council will consider this proposal. But first, we wish to recognize the being whose courage and intelligence revealed this conspiracy. Lieutenant Commander Jack Miller, please step forward." Jack walked to the center of the room, feeling the eyes of hundreds of aliens on him. "Your presentation was most educational," the Tellurian said, with what might have been a smile. "You have shown us that humans bring unique skills to the Coalition, skills we need." The Tellurian raised a medallion on a chain. "The Council awards you the Star of Truth, our highest honor for those who serve justice. May your example inspire others." As the Tellurian placed the medallion around Jack's neck, the room erupted in applause and alien sounds of approval. Jack felt overwhelmed. A week ago, these same beings had been ready to condemn him. After the ceremony, Jack found himself surrounded by aliens and humans wanting to talk to him. Some apologized for doubting him. Others asked questions about his investigation. A few even asked for tips on making better presentations. Rack approached, now wearing the insignia of a senior diplomat. "The Council has appointed me as liaison to the new Joint Security Force," he said. "They want you to help lead it." Jack was surprised. "Me? I'm just a communications officer." Krevik made the Zornaxian gesture of respect. "You are more than that. You showed courage when facing false charges, intelligence when building your case, and wisdom in how you presented it. These are the qualities needed to build trust between our peoples." Susan joined them. Krevik is right. The Admiral has already approved your transfer, if you want it. Jack thought about it. Leading a mixed team of humans and Zornaxians wouldn't be easy. There was still mistrust on both sides. But it was an opportunity to build something important. "I'll do it," he said. "On one condition." "What condition?" Krevik asked. "I want Olivia Garcia on my team." "We wouldn't be here without her help." Susan smiled. "Already arranged. She's being promoted to lieutenant commander." Later that evening, Jack, Olivia, and Krevik sat in one of the station's lounges. Through the large windows, they could see the stars and the ships of many worlds docked at the station. "To new beginnings," Olivia said, raising her drink. "To truth," Krevik added. "To PowerPoint," Jack said with a smile. They all laughed. A group of young officers from different species watched them from across the room. One of them, a junior human ensign, worked up the courage to approach. "Commander Miller, I wanted to say thank you. My brother serves on a ship near the Zornaxian border. If war had broken out—" Jack nodded. "I understand, but it wasn't just me. We all worked together." The ensign looked at Krevik with uncertainty. It was clear he had never spoken to a Zornaxian before. Krevik noticed the look. "Your brother is safe, young human. And if I have anything to say about it, he will remain so." The ensign seemed surprised by the friendly response. "Thank you, sir." After the ensign left, Jack looked at his new Zornaxian friend. "That was kind of you." Krovash's scales shifted in what Jack was learning to recognize as embarrassment. "I have been studying human diplomatic techniques. Kindness seems to be effective." "It usually is," Jack agreed. Olivia raised her glass again. "To kindness, then. May it spread faster than mistrust." As they looked out at the stars, Jack thought about how close they had come to war, how easily fear and lies could destroy years of careful diplomacy. and how sometimes the right presentation at the right time could change everything. Tomorrow, they would begin building the new Joint Security Force. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and probably more attempts by those who feared peace to drive them apart. But tonight, a human, a Zornaxian, and their friends could sit together and share a drink under the same stars. It was a good start. 6 months had passed since Jack's famous PowerPoint presentation. The Joint Security Force, now called Unity Command, had grown from a small team to over 200 members. They had their own ship, the GCS Harmony, with Jack as the human commander, and Kravok as the Zornaxian commander. Jack stood on the bridge of the Harmony, watching as human and Zornaxian crew members worked side by side. It hadn't been easy at first. Centuries of mistrust couldn't be erased overnight. There had been fights, arguments, and times when Jack wondered if the whole thing would fall apart. But slowly, day by day, they had built something new. Humans. Learned Zornaxian customs and ways of thinking. Zornaxians learned human jokes and expressions. They found common ground in their dedication to keeping the peace. Commander Miller, a young Zornaxian officer, called from her station. "We're receiving a message from Nexus Station. Priority 1. Put it through," Jack said. The large screen at the front of the bridge lit up with the face of Susan Wright. She looked serious. "Jack, we have a situation. A Coalition science vessel has gone missing near the Draconid border. Last contact mentioned unusual energy readings and possible weapons fire." Jack felt a cold knot in his stomach. The Draconids had been quiet since Vrask's arrest, but many still resented the humans and Zornaxians for exposing their former general. "Do we have coordinates?" Jack asked. "Sending them now," Susan replied. "The Council wants Unity Command to investigate. This could be sensitive." The science vessel had crew members from 5 different species, including Draconids. "We're on our way," Jack said. "Harmony out." Korivak entered the bridge as the call ended. "Trouble?" he asked. Jack explained the situation. Rivak's scales darkened with concern. "This area has been disputed for years. If the Draconids are attacking Coalition vessels, let's not jump to conclusions," Jack said. "We need to investigate first." Rek nodded. "You are right. That is what Unity Command is for." Jack turned to the crew. "Set course for the coordinates. Maximum speed." The Harmony sped through space toward the border. Jack used the time to prepare his team. They would need to be careful. If this was a Draconid attack, it could reignite tensions throughout the Coalition. When they reached the coordinates, they found debris floating in space. Parts of a ship, broken equipment, and sadly, some bodies. "Life signs?" Jack asked. "None. In the immediate area," reported Olivia from her station. "But I'm picking up an emergency beacon from the 3rd moon of that gas giant. Could be survivors," Jack said. "Prepare a shuttle." Jack led the rescue team himself, with Kervake and 4 other officers, a mix of humans and Zornaxians. They landed on the small, rocky moon and followed the beacon signal to a cave. Inside, they found 28 survivors from the science vessel, huddled around emergency heaters. They looked frightened and cold, but alive. A tall, thin human woman with gray hair stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Lena Kim, Chief Scientist. Thank goodness you found us." "What happened, Doctor?" Jack asked as his team distributed food and medical supplies. "We were studying unusual energy patterns when 3 ships appeared. They didn't respond to our hails. They just opened fire." Dr. Kim shivered. "We barely had time to get to the escape pods. Did you see who attacked you?" Rivak asked. "They weren't Draconid ships," Dr. Kim said. "They weren't like anything we've seen before. The energy weapons they used, our shields couldn't stop them. This was unexpected." Jack and Rigi exchanged looks. An unknown species with advanced weapons was a serious threat. Did you record anything? Jack asked. Dr. Kim nodded and handed him a data chip. Everything our sensors picked up before we were hit. Back on the Harmony, Jack and his team analyzed the data. The attacking ships were indeed unlike anything in Coalition records. Their energy signatures were strange, and their weapons far more powerful than standard Coalition technology. We need to report this to the Council immediately, Kravis said. Jack nodded. But first, let's check if any other ships have gone missing in this sector. Olivia ran a search through Coalition records. 3 ships in the last month, all reported as accidents or mechanical failures. I don't believe in coincidences, Jack said, especially not 3 in the same area. He called an emergency meeting of his senior staff, both human and Zornaxian. They gathered around the conference table, looking at the images of the unknown ships. Opinions? Jack asked. A Zornaxian security officer spoke first. They appear to be scouts, testing our defenses. A human science officer nodded. Agreed. The attack pattern suggests they wanted to see how the ship would respond, what weapons it had. Could they be from beyond the known sectors? K. Rivak asked. There have been stories. Jack thought about it. The Coalition had explored only a small part of the galaxy. There could be many other species out there, some possibly hostile. Whatever they are, we need to prepare, Jack said. But we also need to be united. If this is a new threat, it affects all Coalition species. As they discussed plans, Jack thought about how different things were now. 6 months ago, humans and Zornaxians had been on the brink of war. Now they were working together to face a potential new enemy. When they returned to Nexus Station with the survivors and their findings, the Council called an emergency session. Representatives from all 12 species gathered to hear Jack's report. Tellurian Council leader looked grave as Jack showed the images and data they had collected. This is troubling news, Commander Miller. If there is indeed an unknown species testing our defenses, we must be prepared. The Draconid representative, who had replaced Vrask, spoke up. How do we know this isn't a trick? Perhaps the humans or Zornaxians staged this to gain more power in the Coalition. 6 months ago, such an accusation might have started a shouting match. But now, Krevak simply stepped forward with a calm expression. May I respond? He asked. Jack nodded. K. Rivik activated his datapad and began a presentation. Jack smiled as he recognized the format Krevak had been learning how to make PowerPoints. These are the energy signatures from the attacking ships, Krevak said, showing clear, simple slides. They match nothing in any of our databases. These are the weapons traces, showing technology beyond our current capabilities. And these are the rescue records, verified by members of 5 different species. Slide by slide, Krevak laid out the evidence in a way that was impossible to deny. The Draconid representative sat down, looking embarrassed. When Konvak finished, the council chamber was silent. Then the Tellurian spoke. It seems we face a new challenge, one that threatens all our peoples. We must stand together. Jack stepped forward. Unity Command was created to build trust between humans and Zornaxians. Now we need to expand that unity to include all Coalition species. If we face this threat divided, we will fail. But together, we have a chance. The Council voted unanimously to create a Coalition defense force with Unity Command as its core. Ships and personnel from all 12 species would join together to protect their common interests. Later, as Jack and Krevak watched ships from across the Coalition arrive at Nexus Station, Krevak made the Zornaxian gesture of appreciation. Your PowerPoint saved you from false charges, he said. Mine may have saved the Coalition. Jack smiled. I think we both learned something important. In the end, It's not about fancy weapons or powerful ships. It's about communication, about helping others see the truth. Karevak looked out at the gathering fleet. Truth and unity. Perhaps these are the most powerful weapons of all. Jack nodded. The unknown ships were still out there, a mystery and a threat. But whatever came next, they would face it together. And if necessary, they would explain it with a really good PowerPoint.